A $150,000 Mercedes S-Class does not make you wealthy. It makes you a customer for life, and not the good kind. But a $15,000 Lexus with a 2 GRF EV6 will still be running at 300,000 miles on $70 oil changes while you stack the difference into your bank account. That is not fantasy. That is real-world math. Now here is what should terrify every Mercedes owner watching. That S-Class bleeds $90 a day in value the second ink dries. 3 years in, the Airmatic bags explode, turbo oil lines weep, and your investment needs $10,000 in surgery just to reach the grocery store. That is not luxury. That is a hostage situation wrapped in leather. The Lexus owner has not seen a mechanic in 8 months. No turbos to crack, no air suspension to collapse, no electrical circuits to short out, just a bulletproof sedan building wealth every mile it drives. One car drains your account, the other builds it. Welcome to the car goldmine, the financial arbitrage opportunity. The $150,000 S-Class trap. Now here is a number Mercedes will never print on a single brochure. And once you hear it, you will never look at a luxury car the same way again. A brand new S-Class loses close to 60% of its value within 5 years. On a base model starting around $118,000. That is $70,000 evaporated. Not from a crash, not from neglect, just from time. In the first 12 months alone, you hemorrhage between $20,000 and $35,000. That single year of depreciation costs more than the entire vehicle we are about to reveal later in this video. But I need you to hear what comes next first, because depreciation is only the surface wound. What hides underneath is far more expensive. Mercedes spent decades building a reputation on over-engineering, and 20 years ago, they earned every bit of it. The W140 S-Class was a vault. Dual pane glass, self-closing doors, and inline six that refused to quit. That car deserved the legend. But today's Mercedes is living off borrowed credibility from a vehicle it no longer manufactures. The reputation is inherited, the quality is not. The myth of over-engineering in 2026 around 2010, the philosophy shifted in a direction that benefits Mercedes and punishes you. They stopped engineering for durability and started engineering for complexity. And this distinction matters more than any spec sheet you will ever read. Because complexity is the enemy of every second owner. Every additional sensor, every extra electronic module, every layer of intervention is a future repair bill already addressed to you. Plastic in the hot V, how Mercedes engineers cars to fail. Take the M177 4-liter bi-turbo V8 powering every modern AMG. Twin turbochargers mounted inside the V, the hot V layout. Less lag, sharper response, marketing gold. But here is what the glossy brochure will never show you. When you mount turbos between the cylinder banks, everything around them cooks. Plastic sensors, wiring harnesses, rubber seals, all sitting inside a thermal chamber that never turns off. Mercedes calibrated these parts to survive the warranty window, not a single mile beyond it, and that is not speculation. That is the business model. Stay with me here because the next part is going to change how you see every German luxury car on the highway. The M177 has a documented turbocharger oil feed line defect. Mercedes issued a recall covering thousands of 2018 and 2019 models. But that recall only addressed a narrow batch of VINs. If yours falls outside the window, congratulations. You now own an $8,000 repair that Mercedes will not subsidize. The oil feed line degrades under sustained heat, begins leaking, and if leaked oil contacts the hot exhaust manifold, the fire risk is real. That is not opinion. That is straight from the NHTSA recall filing. But the oil feed lines are not even close to the most expensive failure hiding inside this engine. What I am about to describe next costs 10 times more and hits at half the mileage you would expect. Deep inside the M177 sits the air oil separator. Its job is straightforward: regulate crankcase pressure. The problem is Mercedes buried it in a location so inaccessible that most independent shops refuse the work entirely. Over time, the AOS clogs. When it clogs, crankcase pressure builds with no release. That pressure attacks the weakest point in the block, and 9 times out of 10, it is the rear main seal. A $25 rubber component. The labor to reach it? $9,000 to $10,000 because the entire transmission has to come out. MG forums are flooded with owners reporting this exact failure pattern between 35 and 50,000 miles. That is not worn out mileage. On a normal car, that is barely past the second oil change. Now I know what some of you are already thinking. Fine, skip the AMG, buy the regular S-Class. I need to stop you right there, because what the non-AMG models are hiding might be even worse. The 48-volt mild hybrid scam. Efficiency means unserviceable. The M2642 2-liter mild hybrid engine powers most newer C-Class, E-Class, and entry-level S-Class trims. Mercedes markets the 48-volt system as an efficiency breakthrough. What they actually built is an extra electronic layer that multiplies failure points without adding a single mile of longevity. The 48-volt auxiliary battery alone runs $1,500. The integrated starter generator adds thousands more when it dies. And owners are now reporting cylinder head cracking on higher mileage M264 engines. That is not a repair invoice. That is a death sentence for the entire powertrain. And there is still one more financial ambush hiding underneath this car. This is the one that catches every second owner completely off guard, and almost nobody warns you about it before you sign. Airmatic, the air suspension standard on every S-Class. When it works, the ride is otherworldly. The problem is that it always stops working. Rubber air springs have a documented lifespan of 50 to 70,000 miles. The moment you buy a 3-year-old off-lease S-Class, the one that looks like a steal at 60 grand, you are sitting on 4 rubber time bombs, one at each corner of the car. A single strut replacement runs over $2,500. The air compressor burns out next from overcompensating for leaks, another $1,300. A full system refresh, all 4 corners plus compressor, crosses $5,000 without hesitation, on a vehicle that has already shed $70,000 in value. I call this the second owner trap. Mercedes engineers for the lease cycle, not the ownership cycle. The first owner returns it at 36 months. The second owner inherits every bill the first one never had to see. Now, everything I have laid out should make you furious, but what comes next should make you feel the opposite, because there is one car that violates every single rule I just described, and it costs less than the Mercedes owner just paid for a single suspension repair. The mechanic's secret, the $15,000 Lexus Reality. The 2GRFE engine, a boring mechanical masterpiece. The Lexus 2 GRFE 3.5-liter V6 is one of the most important engines ever mass-produced. Not the most powerful, not the flashiest, the most intelligently designed engine available for under $20,000. And what makes it special is something the industry hoped you would never understand. Toyota built the 2GRFE around a single principle every competitor abandoned: thermal stability over peak output. While the rest of the market was chasing turbochargers and mild hybrid gimmicks, Toyota created a naturally aspirated V6 that runs cool, spins freely, and refuses to die. No turbo to crack, no hybrid battery to replace, no intercooler to fail. 6 cylinders, port injection, and 300,000 miles of pure mechanical stubbornness. And that port injection detail is the weapon nobody in mainstream automotive media ever talks about. On the older FE variant found in the 2007 through 2015, Lexus ES 350, RX 350, and GS 350. Fuel sprays directly onto the intake valves every cycle. Carbon deposits get washed off the valve surfaces every time the engine fires. It cleans itself. Compare that to every modern direct injection engine, including the entire current Mercedes lineup, where fuel bypasses the valves entirely. Carbon accumulates, performance chokes, and eventually you are paying for a walnut blasting service that costs more than the Lexus owner spends on total maintenance in an entire year. Is the 2GRFE flawless? No. And I will not pretend otherwise because credibility matters more than hype. The water pump can seep around 100 to 120,000 miles. Pre-2010 units had VVTi oil line leaks. The newer FKS variant does get carbon buildup. But here's the calculation that changes the game. These are $500 problems. A water pump is an afternoon repair Stack that against a $9,000 rear main seal or a $5,000 air suspension rebuild. The Lexus breaks, yes, but it breaks cheap. And cheap failures are how ordinary people build real wealth. This engine has crossed 400,000 miles on original internals with nothing but regular oil changes. Find me one M177 that has touched 200,000 without a catastrophic intervention. Take your time. Component longevity, steel springs versus leaky Airmatic. The intelligence extends past the engine. The Lexus ES rides on steel coil springs and conventional shocks. No air bladders to rupture, no compressor to burn out, no height sensors to malfunction. It will never float like fresh Airmatic, but it will ride perfectly well at 200,000 miles with a basic shock swap that costs a fraction of one Mercedes strut. Why Lexus refuses to innovate, and why that saves you $3,000 a year. Annual maintenance averages $550. Oil, brakes, filters, that is the full list. Boring by design. That boredom saves you $3,000 to $4,000 annually versus a post-warranty Mercedes. Some people call it a refusal to innovate. I call it serviceable intelligence, building only what lasts and refusing to add what will eventually fail. The depreciation arbitrage. Breakdown. Numbers don't lie. Now let me put the final numbers on the table. Everything up to this point was the case. This is the verdict. 5 years, 2 cars, 1 owner. The 2026 Mercedes-Benz S580. Purchase price, $118,000. 5-year depreciation at 60%, $70,000 gone. Post-warranty maintenance at $4,500 per year, $22,500 total. 5-year ownership cost, $92,500. Residual value, about $47,000. The 2014 Lexus ES 350. Purchase, $15,500. 5-year depreciation at 25%, $3,800. Maintenance at $550 per year, $2,750 total. 5-year ownership cost, $6,550. Residual value, about $11,700. The gap is $86,000. That is a house deposit, a college fund. 14 Lexus ES 350s in a row. The Mercedes costs more to maintain in 1 year than the Lexus costs to own for 5. The second owner trap, why the Mercedes is a liability and the Lexus is an asset clean. 2013 to 2015 Lexus ES and RX examples are currently trading between $14,500 and $17,200. Those prices have held firm and in some cases climbed, because the smart money already did this math. Demand is rising for vehicles that cost nothing to run and refuse to die. The Mercedes follows the opposite arc. Heaviest depreciation in years 1 through 3. Then, right when the curve flattens, repair costs spike, value drops. Budget buyers step in. They discover the real maintenance cost. They sell at a loss. Value drops again. This is the depreciation death spiral. It repeats until the S-Class is worth less than its next 3 invoices combined. The number 1 immortal car reveal. So which car earns the title of immortal car? I have been building toward this answer since the first sentence of this video. The 2013 to 2015 Lexus GS 350. And for those who want the ultimate Goldmines, the late model Lexus LS 460. Peak serviceable intelligence. Before, the industry went disposable. This era is what I call peak serviceable intelligence. The final generation built before the industry abandoned longevity for turbo complexity, hybrid layering, and electronic disposability. The GS350 runs the proven 2 GRFSE, mated to a bulletproof 6-speed automatic. Rear-wheel drive, near-perfect weight balance, a cabin that still passes for $30,000 in 2026. The LS 460 goes further. A naturally aspirated 4.6-liter V8 producing 386 horsepower through an 8-speed automatic. The one URFSE shares the same thermally stable, overbuilt DNA as the 2GR. Clean examples sit under $20,000. A flagship sedan with more rear legroom than a current S-Class at 13% of the price. These cars were made before obsolescence became a strategy, before your suspension needed software, before comfort features required subscriptions. They are from the last era where vehicles were built to be owned permanently, not leased and returned. The most expensive car you own is never the one with the highest price. It is the one with the highest cost of staying alive. The S-Class is brilliant for 36 months. After that, it becomes the most efficient wealth destruction machine German engineering has ever assembled. The Lexus starts every morning without warning lights and without a four-figure surprise. 5 years of ownership costs less than 12 months of Mercedes repairs. If you want to look rich, buy the Mercedes. If you want to be rich, buy the Goldmine. Now, if this changed how you think about cars and money, we have already gone deeper on the exact models, hidden repair traps, and buying strategies the industry does not want public. Those videos are on screen right now. Click one before you leave. What you learn in the next 10 minutes could save you more than you earn today. This is the Goldmine, and you have only just scratched the surface.